Good morning, everybody. We'll get the meeting started. I declare the meeting open at 9:35 and acknowledge that we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respects to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the MODAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panel's Regulations 2011. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the Planning and Development Assessment Panel's Regulations 2011. Members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. My name's Clayton Hyam. I'm the presiding member for today's meeting, and with me I have Eugene Koltaz, the deputy presiding member, online Nima Premji as the third specialist member. And for the first part of the meeting, we have Councillor Barry Winmar and Councillor Cheryl Wood from the City of Kwinana, and later on we'll have Councillors Henderson and Catalano from the City of Swan. There's an apology from Councillor Matthew Rose from the City of Kwinana. There are no members on leave of absence, and minutes from previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Moving to the Part B, City of Kwinana item. Can I have the declaration of due consideration? Can all members please confirm that they've considered all the documentation before you for Part B? A show of hands, please, for that. Thank you very much. Disclosures of interest. There is a disclosure of interest listed. That was Councillor Matthew Rose, who has a child attending Peter Carnley Anglican Community School and another child who previously attended. So as such, Councillor Rose is not sitting today's meeting. Councillors, has this matter been considered by the council previously? Councillor. Unmute. You might need to unmute.
Yeah, Councillor Winmar, presiding member, this matter has not been before council as yet.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So are there any declarations of interest?
No.
None to declare.
Okay, thank you. We move to the item in Wellard Road, Wellard, the proposed additions and alterations to the educational establishment. We have some presenters. May I remind presenters that you have 3 minutes only, and that we will advise you when we be notified when the 3 minutes is up. Excuse me. I'll move to the first presenter, Franz Channing. Excuse me.
Shannon from the Anglican Schools Commission. I'm the Director of Capital Projects for there, and thank you for your time today. The Anglican Schools Commission and Peter Carnley Anglican Community School would like to thank the officers and members from the City of Kwinana for their support and positive recommendation for this project, and we are hopeful that the members of the Development Assessment Panel will see fit to support the recommendation. Support of the local community has resulted in strong ongoing enrolment demand for Peter Carnley. To accommodate this growth and to service our community, additional capacity to our Wellard campus is required. When considering the need for this project in 2023, it was clear that the project would be an opportunity to provide modern, bespoke, specialist spaces for art, music, food technology and textiles, and reflect modern teaching pedagogy. This in turn would provide a range of learning opportunities for the community. The project has been designed to use underutilised spaces, be reflective of the current buildings, accommodate the differing levels on the site, and allow for the ongoing safe operation of the school, 1,000 students on campus each day, and minimise the disruption of their learning. Providing these facilities in our new building will allow for the consolidation of an arts and technology precinct and create a home for our Year 12 students. The buildings that currently provide these limited facilities will then be renewed and regenerated into modern teaching spaces. It is also important to note that the current staff room facility is minimal, and providing a space for staff to gather and be collegial is important in the workplace and for individuals' wellbeing. The school takes its role as being a pillar of the wider community seriously, values being neighbourly, and as such, we are committed to working with the City of Kwinana to look at parking management solutions that prioritises student safety. This includes parking considerations for Year 12s and the private school bus network, a school initiative that was established with 2 buses a few years ago and quickly expanded to 3, with a 4th being added in late 2024. This initiative was introduced to service the school community and reduce the number of vehicles accessing the campus for drop-off and pick-up. I'd like to thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. What I'll do is I'll wait until all 3 are presented and then we'll go to questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, DAP members. We'd like to take the contents of my presentation and also Darren's as read if we could, and just skip through to one of the key points, and that's one of the condition changes. I will also note that we've got Dylan Ray online, who's our bushfire consultant from Western Environmental, if there are any questions. There is one condition that we were seeking some changes to, which is shown on the slide here. We've had some subsequent discussions with the City of Kwinana. This is the bushfire condition. So DFS came back with a referral response quite late in the process, which required some matters of clarification. That resulted in a proposed condition from the City of Kwinana, which is condition 7. We would like to have subsections A and B of that condition deleted. Our presentation also refers to subsection D, but in subsequent discussions with the City of Kwinana this week, since this presentation was submitted, we've all agreed that D should remain. So that's a slight amendment to that request in our presentation. And these matters have been addressed in detail in the Western Environmental letter that was also submitted with our presentation. Otherwise, we support all the other conditions, and I'd like to thank the City of Kwinana officers for working with us so cooperatively on the application throughout the whole time to resolve traffic and parking matters and result in the conditions that you see before you. We've got Darren here to answer any questions about traffic and parking that DAP members might have, myself on planning, Franzel about the school, or Dylan on bushfire matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Renee, is it just to confirm you're seeking deletion of 7A, B and C?
No, just 7A and B.
B,
C and D should stay. Yeah. If we could, please.
Okay, panel members, questions of presenters? No, I can't. No. Hard to see that. Councillors, do you have any questions? On mute again. Councillors, any questions of the presenters?
No, presiding member, there's no questions from my perspective. We've reviewed the conditions and the request, and also agree with the officer's recommendation in relation to those amendments as highlighted by the applicant.
All right, thank you very much. Move to the officers then. Officers, do you want to make any comments or just take questions?
So in terms of the 7A and B, the city accepts to delete those conditions as per the addendum report from the applicant. 7C and D must stay as per the applicant's comment as well.
Okay, thank you. Questions from panel members of the officers?
I do have one. Nima.
Oh,
Nima.
okay, Nima, specialist member. To the officers, I do realise in conditions 3 and 4 you have addressed about the traffic flow and so forth. Have you had any preliminary discussions with the applicant to make sure that the proposed traffic flow through the parking will be manageable?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll respond to that. Yes. Yeah, we did have quite significant discussions with the applicant about some of those ideas about what they will implement. Probably pass over to our engineer.
Yeah, so we did have some detailed discussions with the existing conditions on Mears and Mears Avenue and the Ballard Road roundabout and the access and the rear end parking as well. So some recommendations they did take into board, and that's what we go to input planning parking management plan conditions, which enables on both ways to control the inflow of the traffic, which can improve the performance of the intersections. So mainly we targeted on the Kiss and Drive internal on the northern parking to how they can regulate much more efficient rather backing up the queue, even though there's some internal parking availabilities there. So that's the reason behind it. We had the intentions, or we inputted this condition PMP.
My next question is, there's mention in the report that the council is looking at upgrading one of the intersections. Can you shed some light as to when that particular upgrade to that intersection is being programmed?
Yes, that's that program, part of the Black Spot funding on Henley Boulevard and Ballard Road. So we had some T-bone crashes. So based on that, then we proposed a roundabout, and the program is scheduled between 25-26. We've done the detailed design, so currently going through some design minor element changes. So the construction definitely commenced from 25th mid up to 26th.
You have received approval for the Black Spot funding?
Yes, we did.
All right, thank you, officers. No further questions.
Further questions?
Yes, so the officers, condition 4, you are asking the proponents to implement the parking management plan, and it's a bit uncertain in what you would expect of the proponents should queuing occur on the public roads. It kind of puts the onus on the proponents to solve a queuing problem on the public road that may or may not be caused from their internal operations. The public road shared by other users as well. So I think the condition is a bit uncertain as to how they could provide or implement any measures to mitigate queuing in the public road, other than what they're required to do under condition 3 within their premises. So I'm kind of leaning for that to be an advice note or delete the condition because of its uncertainty. What's your comment, please?
I'll just speak to that first. Yeah, so some of the things we discussed with the applicant was about staff, better use of staff to help with the Kiss and Drive, Kiss and Ride area. We think that condition is only specifically relating to in the event of vehicle queuing from the Kiss and Ride area backing up, which is what we're currently observing. So we believe that it is relevant to this particular development, which is adding an additional 300 students over the period of the sort of the life of the development. So it's not about queuing, just like unrelated to this development. It's about the queuing that will be caused by the additional students from this development that is directly a result of backing up that happens within the Kiss and Ride facility because the vehicles are not moving through the car park. They're kind of coming into the car park and stopping near and stacking near the entrance. So we've discussed that with the applicant, and they have given options that they think they can move that traffic through the car park by using staff and by better directing vehicles to the existing car bays that exist in the car park. So that's the so we think it is specific, and we wouldn't be going outside the scope in terms of implementing that condition. And I'll just add as well that that condition talks about the implementation of the PMP, whereas I think condition 3 doesn't necessarily talk about the implementation, so that needs to be considered as well if there's any change to condition 4. There still needs to be a condition that implements the actual parking management plan. I'll just pass over to Ruben if he has any more comment.
And the traffic report in their CIDRA analysis, they did mention that in the present year and future years, 2027, or upcoming 10 years duration times, the traffic flow at the intersection would maintain at level of service A. But I agree with you, the regional traffics are there, but at this stage, if you look without a school on a holiday period, the operations always performed at reasonable level at the intersections, even though subdivisions are abutting to the school. They do have some alternative access routes, such as Hawkswood Boulevard and Gilmore Avenue and Mears Avenue have some alternative connections on the northern side. So, and our officers, our traffic engineers, been on sites, and in the past, they evidently seen some queuing cause regional traffic delays on the intersections. But recently we have seen school has taken some effort to improve with their PMP, but not formalized. So this will help us to make sure school agree pretty much on the kiss and drive formalization. So that's the purpose of that condition from our perspective.
Okay, further questions?
Well, I still go back to the fact that it's a condition that you're asking them to implement appropriate measures within the timeframe directed. If there's queuing in the public road, condition 3 tells the proponent exactly what you've mentioned. Condition 4 says, well, we might have some other things we want you to do in the road reserve, which is, it just says appropriate measures within the road reserve. So look, the applicants haven't.
Can I perhaps weigh in on that?
Well, you can do if you want, Darren. Yes, go ahead. If you don't worry about the condition, I won't either.
Yeah, thanks, Darren Levy.
That's all.
Darren Levy, traffic consultant. Look, from our point of view, we took that condition as being, and that wording, it could be tweaked, but basically we're reading it as if it requires changes to the agreed parking management plan. So it's part of the review and part of those mechanisms. We certainly didn't see it, and I don't think the council have intended it as being modifications to the road network as such. We're certainly aware that it is queuing from the school that's causing queuing out in the road reserve at this point. We're confident that we can address it, and if we don't get it as good as we can in the first attempt, we're certainly happy to modify that parking management plan and those processes in consultation with the city to get it right.
Okay, thanks, Darren.
No further questions,
No
Your
further
Honour.
questions? Okay. No further questions from the councillors or Nina? No, thank you. All right. We shall move on then to the item. We have a recommendation for approval with conditions. We'll deal with the changes to condition 7 as an amendment through the process. So I'm seeking a mover and a seconder for the recommendation as published.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Jean Coltas. Seconder. Nima. Thank you. Jean.
Yes, look, this is an application to put additions to a private school, which we get regularly through the development assessment process for all schools. And it's obviously the growth of the school and the popularity of the school that's caused it. There were limited objections to the proposal, and pretty much all of them were the traffic issue, which we've discussed already. from a zoning and use permissibility process, it is approvable by the DAP. Design review has looked at, the council's looked at that. It's all okay. Traffic issues, well, we've already discussed those. So there are management plans proposed and annually reviewed, which is a good process to have. As far as any other issues like waste management, the bushfire proposal, bushfire management plan is all okay. And I presume that this school has probably a higher use of private vehicles by students because it does draw from a wider catchment. However, I've noted with a sense of confidence that extra buses are being put on to alleviate that. So in that case, I'm supporting the proposal because it's pretty much a one that's warranted in the locality.
Thank you. Nima, a seconder.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. I concur with all the comments made by the Deputy Presiding Member and just would like to add that the applicant and the city officers have worked very well. They've addressed all the concerns. It's well conditioned, including the request that has been made for the deletion of conditions 7A and B. And I agree that the parking matters have been well addressed, and also the design review panel's comments as well. So I'm fully in support of the approval of this particular DA. Thank you.
Nima, were you moving an amendment to delete conditions 7A and B?
Yes, if it's okay at this particular moment, happy to do that.
Move that. I'll seek a seconder for that amendment.
I'll second that.
And Coltas, thank you. Is there any discussion on the removal of 7A and B? Okay, I'll put that amendment. All in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. Floor still with you, Nima. Any further discussion?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Further speakers? Councillors?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Winmar. This proposal is quite extensive, and the area which the school is located is definitely in a growth area of Kwinana. To the east of that, there is more potential growth over the next 5 to 10 years, exponentially. More, it's projected that the population will increase by 20%. So the parking issues around all of our local schools does come up now and again, but we work closely with all our schools to ensure that the traffic management plans and the way they manage the traffic and access in the kiss and ride facilities are efficient and working through. And we believe that this proposal and the work of the officers has adequately addressed that, and very much thank you for the support in moving this application forward.
Thank you, Councillor Winmar. Councillor Wood, did you want to say anything at this stage?
I just agree with Councillor Winmar, and I'd like to congratulate the officers on such a brilliant plan and for working so closely with the school.
Thank you, and I also support the proposal. It satisfies the planning framework. It's well designed and supported by an independent architectural consultant, which is great. I note the community's concerns about traffic and parking, but I think that's been addressed through, or can be addressed through, the conditions and the work that's already been done by the applicants together with the city officers. It's a quality design, and I think it will be an asset to the school and the local community. So I support it wholeheartedly. Back to the mover to close the debate.
No
further comment. I'll put the motion as amended. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you to we've got no Form 2 DAP applications, no SAT reconsiderations there, and I thank you to Councillor Winmar and Councillor Wood and the staff at the City of Kwinana, and we'll just pause while we get the councillors from Swan on board.
Just checking if you can hear me now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Councillor Catalano. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Yep.
Welcome to Councillor Henderson and Councillor Catalano. We'll just go through some of the preliminaries. Have all panel members duly considered the material before you today? If you show of hands for that, please. Thank you. Also noting that there was a R13 direction response was published on the 7th of January, which was an alternate recommendation for refusal. I'm seeking disclosures of interest. I have received this morning one from Councillor Henderson because this matter was considered at a council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. That's acknowledged. Are there further? Yes, Councillor Catalano.
Yes, I was at that council meeting when it was discussed and a decision was made.
Okay, and you're prepared to under section 212 acknowledge that not bound by any previous decisions or resolution of the local government and undertake independent judgment in relation to the matters before you?
Correct, I will.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the item, and we have some presentations, and I can remind those presenting that we have read your presentations. You have 3 minutes maximum, and we'll let you know when your 3 minutes is up. So I'll move to the first presenter, Christine Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and panel. I'm going to encounter a slight difficulty because the amount of light in the room is not allowing the pointer. I can get it over here on the blind, but not on the map. And I'm not sure, apart from me moving to the map, I'm not sure how to solve that.
Can you just put it on the map again?
Well,
Pointer on the map.
as soon as I get across here, you can't see it. It's the amount of light in the room.
I can still see it.
And it does occupy a bit of what I want to say. Can I move to the map?
Yes, by all means.
Okay, well, I'll see how I go, but please, consider the difficulty. I'll stay standing up if I may, so that I can move around without using up 3 seconds of my precious 3 minutes.
Okay.
So thank you again, Christine Hughes. I have made a written submission, of course, but the time constraint now means that I'll speak only to a few of the issues that have been raised. And I would like to start with the map, and I'd like, by way of explanation. Would you like me to point? No, stand by the screen. I'd just like to point out that the development site is here. This is in various parts of the documents in front of you described as James Street. This bit's called East Street, and all of it's called Great Eastern Highway. And it's really helpful to understand that because
I'm just using the mouse to show.
I've got a pointer, I can see an arrow.
I've got the mouse here.
So what I'd like to say about that is just explaining that this is Fauntleroy Street, this is Swan Street East, and what's really significant about this is that the access to this development site, from our perspective, is that this is one of the smallest streets in Guildford at 5.5 metres. A parking bay length under the standard is 5.4. So we're talking about a very narrow intersection and a very narrow turning circle here. So the existing traffic flow on this street will be increased by the order of 60% with this development. One of our concerns is that what has not been taken into account is the existing parking that is occurring on the verge here, generated in part by resident needs, because there's a 10-unit development with only one bay per unit. But up here, where the East Guildford station is, there's a huge amount of parking. Once we lost express trains, it became highly incentivised to park at any station you could. And the amount of informal parking taking place up here at the intersection of Fauntleroy is huge, such that on this side, only 6 months ago, the Department of Transport put bollards all along here to stop it. Now, of course, it's produced traffic. The parking has come over here. The other thing about the map that I think is important in terms of impact is that this intersection, this side of the intersection is very busy. This side here, 2 years ago, the City of Swan, under black spot funding, decided to restrict access in and out of this street. And as part of their argument, said, well, the traffic will have to come this way. It wasn't a full restriction, but they did observe that that intersection could not cope with the additional 200 vehicles per day that altering this intersection would create, and this would have to be widened. That didn't proceed, but the proposed development creates a greater vehicle movement than the one which the city believed would require changes to that intersection. And the other point about the map is that there are houses, because we're a 200-year-old colonial town, there are houses butting onto Great Eastern Highway, both sides. For the most part, to access any of these, they have to do, coming from this direction, a U-turn, and come back around to get into their property. So that adds a movement to this intersection that did not form part of the traffic report, but we know is quite critical, that you have a U-turn competing with traffic going in and out.
Thank you, Christine. That's 3 minutes.
Oh, I can't believe that, sir. I tried to talk really quickly, but thank you for the opportunity, and I'll leave the rest of the...
We'll just see if there's any questions from panel members.
Oh, sure, thank you.
Panel members, are there questions?
No, I don't have
Yeah. No. Councillors? We'll just, if we can close out of that. Okay, no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move to Alison College.
Can I just hand out, I couldn't.
No, because the ones online can't get a copy of it.
All right.
So.
Well, it's a picture of the frequency from Flight Radar.
Yeah, okay.
I have found the whole thing very challenging, downloading it, filling in the form, etc.
Yes.
You don't make it easy for people of our generation.
I think I'm of your generation.
I'm speaking of my personal experience of the effect of aircraft noise on young children. My youngest granddaughter would run into the house screaming whenever a plane went overhead, absolutely terrified by the noise and the shadow that the plane would create, and she refused to sleep at my place. It is not until you have stood underneath the flight path that you realise how shockingly low and frequently planes fly over throughout the day. For this reason, the airport does not support this type of development. I'm also concerned by the black oily residue that collects on my outdoor furniture and play equipment, and the long-term effects of the health and development of young children using this place 5 days a week. Before hanging my washing on my outdoor line, it is under cover, though not enclosed, I have to wipe off a similar residue, otherwise my sheets have black lines on them. And when having a rainwater tank installed, the installer suggested that he personally would not drink the water collected from my roof. The Indigenous name for Guildford is Mandoon, place of many trees. It is fast becoming a place of not any trees. I refer to the, oh, sorry, I've not been showing the pictures.
That's all right.
Okay. Yeah. So that shows the plane flying over and the shadow and how large the plane is. And this is the residue that collects at my place on the outdoor furniture, a plate that was left outside. And I'm referring to the loss of tree canopy from the expansion of St Jude's in 2022, and also the loss of the tree canopy from this property already, which had 23 trees on it. As someone who works at Trillion Trees, the native tree nursery in Hazelmere, I have consulted with Doug, our restoration ecologist, and Malcolm, who works at Trillion Trees and Kings Park, and they advise that the long-term viability of the remaining Eucalyptus rudis trees or flooded gums, when roots are compacted and the trees are surrounded by tarmac, will be severely compromised, and we lose further canopy, which will cause an increase in the ambient temperature. Is there anything else? Oh, sorry, this shows the loss of trees when St Jude's expansion. Okay. Sorry, it's
That's all right. No, thank you very much. Are there questions of Senator? Councillors? No. All right, thank you very much for that. Move on to Edward Halliwell.
Good morning, I'm Edward Halliwell on behalf of the Guildford Association. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the impact of this development on the heritage of the surrounding area and on Guildford as a whole. The entire town, of course, was placed on the state's Heritage Places Registry in 2019. The city's heritage policy for Guildford says new buildings have the capacity to contribute to the streetscape and to complement the historic built environment. In its heritage impact statement, the developer says this building will have little or no impact on the heritage values of Fauntleroy Street and Guildford as a whole. We disagree. The most obvious impact is from the large car park in front of the building, combined with the building's position at the rear of the site. This is strikingly at odds with the rest of this residential street. The city's policy says setbacks should be in line with the overall streetscape, and that this is a critical factor in influencing the character of the street. In Fauntleroy Street, the front setback is 5 to 6 metres. This building is about 25 metres. The developer themselves acknowledge that this is not representative of setbacks typical to Guildford. They say that to retain the trees on the site, the only position for the building is at the rear of the site and no alternatives are possible. We suggest this is because of the need for this car park. A residential building wouldn't have this problem. The fact that the childcare can't accommodate both the setback requirements and the retention of the trees suggests that it's the wrong development for this site. The city's policy also says that new development in a residential area shall not be built up to side boundaries. This development has a setback of 0 metres for 10 metres along the building's southern side. In its heritage policy, the council says scale is a prime determinant of an area's character, and Fauntleroy Street's buildings are modestly sized, with the car park this development will occupy most of the site, with only 4 metres outdoor space behind the roof. Another issue with the form of this building is that the roof pitch is only 20 degrees in some places, which is a deviation from the city's policy. The city's character statement notes that the primary building material for Fauntleroy Street is red brick. It appears this building will be mostly grey compressed fibre cement weatherboard style cladding in a vertical pattern, which is not found anywhere else in the street. Weatherboards are meant to be timber and horizontally positioned according to the city's policy. The developer has proposed a combination of fencing and landscape to make the car park less visible from the street. We do not agree that development should be so visually jarring that they need to be screened from public view. The city's policy says private gardens should be retained where they contribute to the streetscape, and of course Guildford is very well known historically for its gardens. The developer says the landscaping they propose is representative of the front garden, but of course the front garden is now going to be a car park. Somebody else will be speaking about trees, but I just mentioned that the developer's heritage impact statement makes no mention of the impact of the loss of the century-old flooded gums and the bottle tree to the landscape. Trees are as much a part of heritage as buildings.
You can wind up, please, Mr. Howard.
Sure. There's issues with signage, which doesn't comply with the city's policy. And finally, the site fronts onto Fauntleroy Park, which is valued by members of the community as a recreational area and has historic significance as the original site of the Royal Show. The visual appearance of this development, the car park at the front, along with its impact on traffic and parking, will further erode, we believe, the heritage value and amenity in the park.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. Halliwell? Councillors? No. Yes, Councillor Henderson. You need to unmute.
To unmute, Councillor.
Okay, got it. Sorry about that. In regard to the zero setback issue, would the presenter advise, is this something that's quite regular in Guildford? I think there's quite a lot of them. What's the situation there?
I believe there are some in the 0 metre side setbacks in the same street, but the council's policy is that there shouldn't be any. So I think that adding another one is just compounding something that shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Thank you.
Mr. Halliwell, you're suggesting that Mr. Philip Griffiths, who's a well-known heritage architect, is wrong in his assessment of the heritage statement he made.
This is our position. I mean, I'm not familiar with what he's saying. But...
Okay. All right.
So also, we're aware that the council had an independent consultant look at it as well. They supported the proposal. It's in the responsible authority. Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Halliwell. Move on to Councillor Howlett. She's online. Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. I need to declare that I am a councillor with the City of Swan and I am a ward councillor for the Midland Guildford ward. So firstly, I just want to declare that and that I was in attendance at the meeting that this was heard at. However, I wish to do a deputation today in support of the council's decision, but mostly to highlight where it fails to comply with the policy or two. All right, ready to go?
Yes.
Thank you. This development application fails to comply with the Guildford Mandoon Heritage Area Policy, which has been prepared to guide the conservation and the cultural significance of the Guildford Heritage Area, and is also contrary to the objectives of the City of Swan Urban Forest Plan, particularly P1.1. The GMAP, the Guildford Heritage Area Policy, states that at M8.5.1, mature trees in the public and private realm are to be retained and integrated into the design of new development, alterations and additions. And at M8.5.2, removal of mature trees requires development approval and applications must be supported by a qualified arborist report explaining that the tree is at the end of its lifespan and is either dead, diseased or dangerous. The purpose of the arborist report was to provide an independent arboricultural assessment of the trees set at 79 Fauntleroy Street, Guildford, and to establish the tree details, health and condition, useful life expectancy to assist with the tree retention priorities. The arborist report pertaining to this DA fails in that purpose to assist with the tree retention priorities. Instead, it recommends removal of otherwise healthy mature trees, the express reason that they will not survive the site works and the development of this site. This change of use from the previously approved 2-dwelling site to a daycare catering for 67 children plus 13 staff plus parents drop off and picking up now unfairly places these trees in an area of high level human occupations. The arborist report states that at 8.5 land use, the risk assessment has been conducted based on the anticipation of property development. This may include site works, further inspections, contractors entering the site, etc. It is recommended to conduct a further risk assessment once development has been complete and before opening to the general public. This demonstrates the arborist's concerns or purpose is towards human safety and not the health condition and useful life expectancy of the trees, which was the purpose of the report. These trees were protected under the previous DA approval granted to demolish the existing building, now completed, and are now at risk due to the anticipated damage they will encounter during the site development, thus causing a risk to human occupation. This damage will lead to their inevitable removal and does not comply with the GMAP policy to retain vegetarian through all stages of planning and development. This is not a failing of the trees, rather a failing of the planning and the design that does not incorporate the structural root zone of these trees. The land use has changed from when the DA was approved to demolish the dwelling and build 2 standard dwellings which incorporated the retention of the mature trees. The application has not applied the conditions of that approval, and that was to retain the mature trees. These mature trees are healthy, they require protection under the City of Swan Guildford Mandarin Heritage Area Policy and the Urban Forest Plan. Council were unanimous in refusing this application, acknowledging of the 93 submissions received, 86 were in objection. Guildford's heritage is of national significance and local importance. It is important that we not only refer back to the GMAP, but we enforce its measurables. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there questions? Councillor Catalano, question.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted, so when you're in respect of Guildford heritage, the national significance and the WA, like at the higher level, sort of WA legislation. What was can you just give us a little bit of a rundown, if you can, about what the state government did? Is it as a heritage town or what? I'm not quite sure now. I just wanted to confirm. Do you know?
I probably can't get my wording correctly on this one, but it is listed as a heritage town, I believe, on the National Registry. But I will be corrected if I'm wrong. It is, I believe, one of only a few listed heritage towns, but actually the Guildford Association might be able to answer that with more clarity.
Well, perhaps even the staff when we get to the staff, Councillor Catalano.
Correct.
All right. Okay, thanks. And the policy, though, is the City of Swan policy, is it?
It is. It's the Guildford Mandarin Heritage Area Policy.
That's the City of Swan policy.
Correct. It's the City of Swan policy. Yes, it's a guiding policy for Guildford.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions of Councillor Hallett? No, thank you, Councillor. Move on to Deputy Mayor Ian Johnson.
Thank you, presiding member and panel. I do work in the area on Swan Street, please. I'm recommending that DAP does not support this childcare facility at this location. My reasons are tree protection, traffic and parking, narrow street access and the siting of the childcare facility directly onto the Perth Airport flight path. Until about 2 years ago, there was a 1920s house on this site. This has since been demolished. Council in July 2021 previously rejected a childcare facility at this location. Currently, there is a development approval rather, for 2 houses dated December 2022. The most recent approval retains and protects the trees. The trees are important as they are flooded gum trees. This is the original tree species in the Guildford area. The DA proposes to remove one flooded gum and the bottle tree. I don't know of another bottle tree in the area. Guildford Heritage Area Local Planning Policy says that removal of mature trees can only be done if the tree is dead, diseased or dangerous. You can see this on page 269 of your agenda, or it's also page 9 of the report. It's the very top paragraph. I'm also of the view that the tree roots will be damaged by proximity to the parking, likely leading to the death of all these trees, as we saw on Swan Street recently. Is there an arborist report showing that the trees will survive? I've not seen it if there is. Traffic. The traffic impact statement is dated July 2024, but the data dates from September 2017 and 2021, prior to the significant expansion of St Jude's and the increase in commuter parking demand in the area and the installation of bollards on the other side of the train station, reducing parking capacity. The traffic study is out of date. Available parking is very limited in the area, yet the proposal has a shortfall of 1 parking bay in the report and 2 bays in the letter to residents. Fauntleroy Street, as you've heard, and I live near there and can attest to this, is very narrow, and the junction with James Street, the Great Eastern Highway, is very difficult for 2 cars to cross it in opposite directions, which would be a danger to children being driven to the premises. The childcare premises, as I can attest because I live nearby, is right under the flight path of the main runway 21 of the Perth Airport. Heavy jets are flying low on the final approach, creating a noisy environment for young children, particularly if they're playing outside. There were 86 submissions from the community objecting to this application, plus a petition of 99 signatures opposed. Of note, there were 71 submissions objecting to the removal of trees, 57 objections on traffic grounds, 43 objections on the parking shortfall grounds. So, panel, may I ask you to not endorse this motion, this application, for reasons of tree protection, traffic and parking, narrow street access, and the location on the flight path. The planning is not aligned to the Guildford Mandarin Heritage Local Area Planning Policy, which is part of our City of Swan Local Planning Scheme 17, so it should not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Questions of the presenter? Councillors? No? Yes, Councillor Catalano.
I know that you live opposite the St Jude's, and I did actually drive past there yesterday. I just wondered what, and the train station and that issue there with the parking. I mean, I did notice there was just a huge number of cars there. What do you reckon the increase in parking in that area has been since, like, St Jude's and the train station has come online for all trains? What do you think in the last sort of 12 months?
It's been a very significant, but I've lived in the area for nearly 18 years, and when we first moved there was no parking associated with St Jude's or the train station. Nobody parked on verges. It's quite common for me to come home now and find people parking on my verge. So at any one time, the amount of parking has increased significantly in the last couple of years. I would say there's in the region of 100 cars parked on verges and close to the train station in what is informal parking all the way along the verge on Fauntleroy Street. It's like living in a car park, and I think if we attract more people into the area using through this childcare facility, we're probably going to add probably another 30 cars or more parking. So there's very little off-site parking.
Thank you. Further questions?
I do have one. Sorry, was Councillor, you acknowledge that the childcare centre is providing its own parking, albeit with a one shortfall, which they've justified on the basis of their experience in operating childcare facilities. So theoretically, there won't be any demand for on-street parking. Anecdotally, you're saying there'll be hundreds or whatever more demand, but the way the childcare centres operate, parents come there, drop off kids and go.
Yeah,
under the council's policy, they're required to provide their on-site parking, which they are. The train station in St Jude's obviously didn't. So those problems are problems that were occurred just because historically they weren't required to do so.
Yeah, look, there's a difference between the parking required for St Jude's and the parking required for childcare. This particular childcare is being built right next to the Eastgate train station. So my concern is that the people dropping off their children are not going to drive to work. They are going to park in the area. So it's going to attract more people to use East Guildford train station than they will park there.
Do you have any evidence of that?
Well, it hasn't been built yet, so I can't provide evidence, but based upon the design and the capacity and the location, it is more likely than not that future users of the childcare will most likely park in the area, adding to the parking. And there is currently not a lot of parking in the area. It is turning a residential neighbourhood into a large car park. It's worth noting that St Jude's doesn't have that ability to generate traffic that a childcare centre will. So we are concerned that with the narrow roads and the fact that all the available verge parking is currently being used, we're going to intensify this to a point where it will just be the residential amenity will be ruined. So,
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thanks. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Deputy Mayor, was people are also parking on the road as well, aren't they? They're not just parking on verges, but they're parking on the road. And would you say that this has a restriction on traffic flow on Fauntleroy?
yeah, that's right. You make a very interesting point, Councillor Catalano. St Jude's is on Swan Street East, and St Jude's have decided that they don't want anybody parking on their verge. They've got a 10-metre deep verge, and they mow it. It seems like once a week. They maintain it. They don't want anybody to park on it. They won't let their staff park on it. If anybody does park on it, they're immediately shooed off by the staff. So as a result, people are parking on one side of Swan Street East. So Swan Street East is a fairly narrow street as it is, and the verges are kept as they are for heritage reasons. It means that Swan Street East during the day is a very narrow street.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of the presenter? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Move on to Alessandro Stagno. Alessandro.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Presiding Member. Good morning, panel members. I'm the applicant of the Early Learning Centre proposed at 7 and 9 Street in Guildford. Sitting next to me, I've got Jamie DeRui from Maya Circle Architects, and on Zoom, we also have Marina Claywig from Premise Traffic Engineers. We'll all be available to answer questions at the end of my presentation. The application before you has undergone an in-depth process of pre- and post-lodgement design review, community consultation, and town planning assessment by the city officers. The outcome of this process is a recommendation by the city officers that the development should be approved subject to suitable conditions. This recommendation is the result of careful consideration of all key town planning issues and weighing up the merits and appropriateness of the proposed childcare development. We note that through its separate consideration of the officer assessment, the council has opted not to endorse this recommendation, citing the key issues of the removal of 2 trees, perceived traffic impact, and the potential impacts of aircraft noise. Each of these issues is comprehensively covered in the officer report, and I'll look to address them with the limited time I've got in this presentation. First and foremost, I think it's important to remember why we're all sitting in this room today. Guildford is a unique suburb in the metropolitan region of Perth. It has 2 operational train stations, a major school, but not a single childcare centre available to local families. This particular site has highly desirable locational features. It's within easy 400-metre walkable catchment of East Guildford Station, a major park, Fauntleroy Park, 2 churches, an aged care facility, St Jude's, and Guildford Grammar, a major co-ed school with pre-kindy up to year 12 age groups and which had an enrolment of over 1,300 students in 2024. Not only this, the site's position on the road network is also a benefit. It doesn't directly front James Street or Great Eastern Highway and easily receives traffic from both of these roads via Fauntleroy Street and Swan Street East. The community benefit this centre will generate must be recognised, as currently local families need to rely on services in other suburbs which are already serving a wide catchment themselves. Some of the community responses reflected this sentiment as well. The issue of trees and landscaping was comprehensively covered in the RAR. We listened to the community sentiment about this issue, and during the application process, we modified this development to retain all but 2 trees, which unfortunately need to be removed, to enable the provision of sufficient parking bays to service the development. The car park will contain a mixture of newly planted trees and existing mature trees, including the largest and most significant existing floated gum tree, which is located toward the front of the site and which forms a key element of local streetscape character. The existing trees will be retained and protected through the provision of almost 15% of site area as deep soil, which is more than double the minimum requirement. And the entire car park is provided with paving. The layout of the landscaping for both proposed trees and existing trees has been informed through the expert input of our landscape architect and discussions with the arboriculturalist. A total of 15 new native trees will be planted throughout the site and in the verge to replace the 2 trees that are being removed, which is a ratio of over 7 to 1. The landscaping and tree planting arrangements are reasonable and warrant support. Is it right if I continue?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll go to questions. Are there questions of the presenter?
Yes, I have one. You mentioned that the paving will be permeable. That wasn't up in the arborist's report. Comment that the system will be damaged and the tree will be will not survive. What's your comment to that?
So the arborist report that's in the RAR was what we had prepared prior to lodgement. We actually initially proposed to remove all of the trees and replant them. But following the assessment by the city and the consultation process, we were strongly encouraged by the city to look at retaining as many trees in the car park as possible. So what we had to do within the timeframe that we had under the application process was we deferred back to the landscape architect and the arboriculturalist, and we looked at how we could modify the car park layout to retain the trees. And the arboriculturalist basically provided advice that through the provision of paving, deep soil, and also some minor pruning and some management during the detailed design process, that the trees will be viable and can be retained.
Okay. Another comment was made about the vertical nature of the compressed concrete or panelling. What's your response to that?
Yeah. So there's a couple of important points to note there. So firstly, under the Guildford Mantoon Heritage Policy, it does emphasise that some contemporary flavour can be provided in the design of new buildings. Initially, when we designed this project, we actually had a very traditionalistic heritage response. It went through design review, and Stephen Carrick was the chair of the design review panel at the time. He's the heritage architect that oversees all the city of Swan. It's actually reflected in the minutes that we were strongly encouraged by the design review panel to look at incorporating some contemporary styling, so that way we weren't going with a heritage response that was overly traditionalistic and would blend too much with what was in the area. So the use of the vertical cladding was the approach that we took, and then that was subsequently supported by the design review panel.
Okay, thank you. Now there's lots made of the existing traffic problems in the locality and access to and from the site. Now, what's your response to some of those comments?
So I do have Marina online as well that can talk to the traffic assessment, but I'll just start it off by saying, obviously you recognise traffic impact as a concern of the elected members and the residents. The traffic impact statement was revised during the application process based on the comments that we received, because a lot of the comments did relate to the St. Jude's expansion, as well as existing local traffic conditions in the area. The revisions to the TIS actually looked at the traffic assessment that was done for St. Jude's, and that traffic was considered. The traffic associated with the train station was already captured within the existing volumes, because the train station has been operating for a very, very long time. Marina can actually probably talk to the way that the traffic generation relates to the capacity of the network and also the width of the carriageways of both of the roads as well. Marina, did you want to chime in?
Marina, also perhaps make some comment in relation to the use of 2017 data.
Thank you. Well, firstly, our company did prepare the transport impact assessment for the previous proposal in 2021. I understand that's not under consideration right now, but that means we do understand the area quite well. Firstly, I would like to point out that the city's engineers have reviewed our assessment and concur with our findings. They support the findings of the report and the statements that this is not unacceptable traffic impact and that one parking bay shortfall for the staff is not going to cause detrimental impact. So from there, we did ask, as usual, for data that was collected by the city. Given that these are all local roads, the most recent data that was collected on local roads was from 2017. I understand that in my experience, usually when the city has an issue with that, they tend to request from the proponent to collect a new set of data. I believe that the city was of the opinion that the traffic did not increase to the point that it might surpass capacity of the road. And in preparation for this particular meeting, I did find and I'm happy to share this on the screen. I found a survey that Main Roads actually commissioned in end of February 2024 for the intersection of Great Eastern Highway, Swan Street and Water Street, that quite clearly shows that on that particular day, 28th of February, there were 588 vehicles on Swan Street, which is again very, very far from the capacity, from the nominal capacity of that road, and is not substantially different when we look in terms of capacity from 2017 data. Simply, while St. Jude can be deemed as a significant development by the residents in terms of traffic impact, the traffic generated by St. Jude is not really substantial enough to contribute to capacity issues. Similarly, can be said about this particular development. And I'm sorry, did I miss any of the questions?
No, I don't think so. Okay. Councillor Catalano.
Yes, I've got a question about the traffic. Did I read correctly in your report that there's going to be an estimated 294 daily vehicle trips resulting from the childcare centre?
Yes, that is correct. In all honesty, I would, on one hand, I must express professional frustration with particularly childcare centres and the way we are requested to assess these developments. So, for example, in assessing that development and the traffic impact from the development, we are required to assume that every single child is driven to the childcare centre in a separate vehicle. So no allowance for arrivals on bicycle, walking, etc., and no allowance for any siblings in the centre. Although all of the experience over the last decade and a half of working with different childcare providers shows quite clearly that in each childcare centre we have 15 to 25% of siblings. So that means more than one child driven in the car. So this particular assessment assumes that exceptionally conservative situation, which is unlikely to eventuate, particularly, and as well, on top of that, that we have each and every single staff member being driven or dropped off separately in separate vehicle, and not using public transport, which is readily available, not carpooling, and again, we know quite often there is a significant number of junior staff who are below driving age, and they just don't require parking. They make the different arrangements. So yes, 294 daily vehicle trips under these exceptionally conservative conditions.
Okay, thanks. That's nearly 300. And that was, I believe, in your report. It was also that there were only St. Jude's. There were only 23 extra vehicles a day. Was that from your report?
That was quote from the St. Jude's report when it was originally published.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the difference between the two facilities. All right then. Thank you.
Hang on. Yes, thanks, Councillor Alessandro.
Yeah, thank you very much, Presiding Member. Marina, do you also just want to clarify the difference between vehicle movements and daily vehicles? Because the 294 movements, I think, is a 50-50 directional split. Is that correct? So
yes.
The actual number of vehicles that are being created on the road network would be half of that, correct?
That is correct. So basically, a vehicular movement, if you can imagine a line on a crossover and how many times a car will cross that particular line. That constitutes the number of vehicular movements. So every single car that comes to this childcare center will have to get in and then get out, that therefore generate 2 movements.
Thank you. Further questions of the senators? Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thanks. I've got some questions for Alessandro. Thank you.
Yes.
That's all right. So,
Traffic.
oh, we're only dealing with traffic, not dealing with Alessandro? Who are we?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'll wait.
We'll come back to that. Councillor Catalano.
Am I talking to Alessandro? Sorry.
Yes, you can ask.
Yes, correct. Thank you. Okay. So I drove past yesterday, Alessandro, and I really could not reconcile the site as it is now with the diagram, which is your proposed, the proposed diagram, which we had on the screen just a little while ago, for the childcare centre, particularly in respect of the trees. The main thing is I wanted to know, is the large Eucalyptus rudus at the front of the block, is that the one that's going to be removed, or is that going to be retained?
So if you're looking at, there's actually some site photos in the RAR, the last attachment. If you're looking at the site, on the right-hand side, there's a large flooded gum tree, which I think is a Eucalyptus rudus, that's being retained within a wide, deep soil finger curb. On the left-hand side, there's the skinnier, I think it's called a bottle tree. That one's being removed.
Sorry, so the bottle tree, which I believe is a Kurrajong, that's going to be removed. So the rudus at the front is going to be retained. What about the other 2 rudus behind that? Because there's 3 rudus there, 3 very old, large rudus that I saw. And I could not work out from your diagram which one's going to be removed.
Yeah, the trees that are in green are the ones that are being retained, and there's a large cluster of the Eucalyptus rudus trees. There's a large cluster of Eucalyptus rudus trees on, if you're looking at the site on the right-hand side, which are to be retained within a very large, deep soil space.
Okay, is there any way that you can show me on your map, because it's just not clear in your report which one of these trees is going to be removed? Sorry, I just could not figure it out, because they're very large trees, and I didn't understand how you were going to get this crossover into the area and retain that tree. I just could not figure it out looking at the site yesterday.
Yeah, we can share the site plan.
Share that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's attachment 2 to the.
Yeah.
Hang on.
And while we're getting that up, I just wanted to bring to your attention, or just ask of you. You say you're going to plant. I think it's 12 additional trees.
12
on
the verge.
Yeah, are you aware that these are not trees native to this area? None of those trees that you've got in your list, not one of them is native to this area. Are you aware of that?
Our landscape architects selected the species based on their suitability for this particular soil type and this particular location.
Yeah, well, they're not, okay, you're not aware of it then, okay. So, yeah, see this map that's on the screen? I just do not understand how these 3 rudus trees that I saw yesterday fit in this car park. They don't seem to be actually marked out on this car park. Maybe you could enlighten me a little bit more.
Just point them out, Alessandra. Hang on, Councillor, we'll point them out for you.
Thank you.
This is the one that's showing on the screen.
The landscape plan's actually better because it shows.
Yeah. All right, so just on that drawing that you're looking at, Councillor Catalano.
Which drawing are we?
Okay, that one that's in front there. So do you see the big green outlines on the northern side of the car park, right in front of the building? That's a cluster of 5 Eucalyptus rudus trees that are being retained.
That's one tree. And what about, so what's this large one here at the front? Is that large one at the front?
Sorry, I haven't got my plans.
Yeah, because there's actually 3 very large old rudus trees there.
Proposing to be removed to the left.
Yeah, so that's the bottle tree. Okay.
So where's Kurrajong? Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the Eucalyptus rudus.
Okay, so I'm just,
they're over 100 years old by
Hang
my
on,
estimation.
Councillor, listen to Alessandra.
Yes, thank you.
I'll just step you through this, Councillor. So where you see the cursor waving at the moment.
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Can you see the cursor?
Yes, I can, thank you.
That's the largest eucalyptus rudis that's being retained. It's outlined in green.
Yeah, that's the front one. Yep.
Yep. And then where I've got the cursor now, all these outlines in green is a cluster of 5 eucalyptus rudises.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, they're being retained.
Okay,
Now,
so it's the rudis to the left of the site.
so there's one
The
bottle.
southern boundary, closer to the southern boundary. No, that's a Currajong. Forget that one. There's another rudis in there
This
that's being
rudis,
removed.
that one rudis is the only one that's being removed.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now further questions. I think Nima, you have a question.
Yes, this sort of goes across both the TIS and Alexandro. Very quickly, you mentioned, it was mentioned, just do a gallery view, by Marina, that you did the 2017, you got the vehicles per day, and then at 2024, the main roads did. What was the percentage of increase in the vehicles? Just briefly.
Marina, did you want to handle that?
Yeah, I can handle that. Just 1 second. I'll do that quick calculus now.
So while you're doing that, I'll ask my next question, Alexandra. You mentioned initially that you put forward the proposal that you're going to remove the trees, and then you went to the design review panel and said, no, we're not going to remove the trees. But when you made that comment, you said remove the trees and replant it somewhere else. Is that correct?
The original proposal that we'd made was to actually remove all the trees from the car park, and we were planting replacement trees within a very wide front landscape buffer. That layout subsequently changed through the application process. We modified it not based on design review panel comments, but based on community consultation feedback.
Okay, and then you changed that. Okay. The other one was about the noise. Now, reading the acoustics, so it is, and also at the behest of the design review panel, the internal centre of the child premises, and it can be done with, noise attenuation and etc. What about on the outside? Are we looking at anything on the outside being done?
Just to clarify, Member Premji, is that in relation to the noise generated by the centre or the noise received by the centre?
Noise received by the centre.
So no mitigation outside because it's an open play area where there's already noise being generated, and it's not really part of the core curriculum activities that are within the internal spaces. So the only insulation that's being provided is to the interior, entirely in accordance with the noise targets set out by State Planning Policy 5.1.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, Marina, have you had a chance?
Yes, I have. So if we are looking at the compound growth, this is approximately 4% per annum from 2017 to 2024. However, what needs to be also considered is that the city of Swan conducted these 2017 traffic counts data collection as weekly data collection, and this is the average. However, main roads just collected data on one particular day, not over the entire week.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Thanks.
Further questions? Jane, did you have?
Yeah, the capacity of the streets, I presume they're affected by the on-street parking. If there's already existing on-street parking, that affects the traffic flow through the area for those. Primarily, I think has there been any origin destination surveys done of people that are coming and going to that premises? I mean, are they all local Guildford residents parking at the station, or are they people from far and wide?
Sorry, is that for me or for Alessandra?
Well, that's for you.
Okay. Yes. No, we did not. We did not conduct any additional surveys, and we were not requested to conduct any additional surveys. I am not sure. Technically, I understand this is bit challenging to manage, given that access to public transport is public, and therefore there is no law that stops anyone traveling from one part of Perth metro area to catch the train into another. So in that sense, we cannot confirm where these people from that are coming to catch the train at this particular train station. Now, does the on-street parking, does it reduce the capacity of the road? It does reduce the operational capacity of the road. However, at the same time, most of planning guides encourage on-street parking on particularly on residential roads to a reasonable degree, because it provides side friction and it reduces the operational speed. So what tends to happen is that people drive slower and more carefully if their parked on the road, rather than if the road is completely clear. Now,
Okay.
and again, if I may just, so this is a gazetted road, so legally it is classified by main roads. While we discuss livable neighbourhood categories of access roads in planning terms, for gazetted roads, main roads tends to provide functional and functional hierarchy. So. And for all of the access roads under main roads policy, for all existing access roads, the nominal capacity is 3,000 vehicular movements per day. So that is one of the reasons why I believe that the city's engineers are not really concerned about the capacity.
Just another follow-up. In terms of the St Jude's, are you aware of what they were required to provide in terms of parking and what they ended up providing?
I will have to, in all honesty, we do have it somewhere in archive, the original report that was prepared by another consultant, not by us, from 2019, but I was unable to find it in the archive before this meeting. However, what we do have, and the quotes that we've pulled out from this particular report, I believe that the shortfall was about 11 parking bays. And the total traffic generation that was estimated for the whole development was 57 vehicle movements. And when we're discussing 23 movements, that was the impact that was on Fauntleroy Street only. So that, as I believe the St Jude's facility has a one-way drive-through facility, so that sort of tends to distribute traffic a little bit differently, and as well they are most likely to be concentrated on Swan Street. But yeah, my recollection is that they were there was an 11 bay parking shortfall. However, I'm not sure whether the proponents negotiated something different with the city or corrected that since 2019.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you.
Further questions of the presenters?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, you can't. No.
I live on Fauntleroy Street.
Excuse me. It's the time for panel members to ask questions. Further questions from panel members? No. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the officers now. Who have we got there? With Darcy and Jonathan there, have we?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Selena is also in attendance.
Okay. Gentlemen, would you like to make any comments or simply take questions?
We will simply take questions.
Okay. Questions of the officers, Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you. We've got a lot of, when we've got on-street parking, we have a lot of issues in the city of Swan already regarding people not being able to, the traffic not being able to flow because of parking on the street. So I just wanted to ask you, is it likely, I mean, there's no doubt that there's parking on the street at Swan Street from St Jude's. Do you think that people that there's going to be congestion on that street as people try to access this childcare centre, and there's all this on-street parking, particularly that they'll be in a hurry to park at the station or drop their kids off? Have you taken into consideration that this is not going to be that just the parking is not going to be at some sort of enhancement and help the traffic slow down, when in fact what will happen there will be a need for a lot of rushing and dropping off and finding parking to get onto the train or drop their kids off. Just wondered if you'd consider.
So my assessment investigated more or less the facts of the matter with respect to how the transport impact statement assessed the capacity of the roads. My assessment did not include the behaviour of the drivers, noting that we cannot condition how people will use the road ultimately.
Okay, great, thanks. And were the city happy and did they support the use of the 2017 traffic data by the proponent in putting together their report on this?
Yes, they do.
Do you want to give me your reasons why the city was in support of that? When it's a long time ago now, it's almost 10 years ago that report was that was conducted.
So there was a more recent traffic study done of the area using 2021 statistics. However, those numbers resulted in an approximately 30 vehicle movement decrease. That largely being attributed to presumably being the height of COVID, as well as it does also not factor in the St Jude's expansion. So noting those facts, the city's engineers noted the reduction in number and operated on the assumption that this would not be an issue.
Thank you. Further questions? Nima.
Yeah, just a few questions. First of all, just confirming that this particular development is providing its own parking on site, although there's a shortfall of one. Okay. The next is with the parking problems and all the traffic issues that's been discussed on Fort Road and East Swan Street, has the council considered any mitigation measures in order to try to, reduce the impact of the parking on the flow of the traffic, or have discussions with PTA or whatever?
Not as part of this assessment, no.
Have you done it off? It's not part of the assessment, but has the engineering done it? If you had complaints, concerns, have the council done anything about it?
Not to my knowledge.
We have to take it on notice. Unfortunately.
And the other one was the report was referred to the Heritage Council. In the report, a couple of pages down, it said they did not come back with any concerns regarding the facade of the building and the visual impacts, etc. Is that still the case, or have they come back since then, since all the concerns have been expressed?
No, they've not provided revised comments.
All right. And with regard to, no, I think you answered all my questions. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up to the question about parking in the street, has the city received complaints in the past about the parking in the street and issues to do with traffic movement through that area?
To clarify, you're referencing complaints outside of the timeframe of this development application?
Yes, just generally.
No.
You're not aware of that? No.
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. in regard to the street parking issues, should the street be impacted to a point where traffic couldn't flow effectively, does the council have the option or ability to introduce no parking along one side of the street or both?
As I understand it, there has been discussions to introduce a Guildford parking strategy that would enable that as a possibility. However, that has not yet currently been prepared to go before council.
Thank you.
Further questions of the officers from, yes, Councillor Catalano.
Yeah, thank you. I've just got the one about the Guildford National Heritage. Can you just explain to me what that is? Sorry, just give me its correct title. You know, the sort of the higher level of heritage significance that was afforded to the town. I think it was in the last 5 or 6 years or something.
Sorry, the Guildford Historic Township is blanket listed as a place of heritage significance on the state register.
So the Guildford town, sorry, what was it? The Guildford town is?
Yes.
Yeah, the Guildford town is listed as a whole town on the State Heritage Register. Is that correct?
The town is blanket listed, yes.
Blanket listed.
The site at 7 and 9 Fauntleroy Street is not individually listed.
No, but the whole town is listed as under the state government heritage.
As a heritage place.
Yeah, heritage place. Okay, heritage place. And the national significance, do you know anything about that one?
You're speaking of the history of the site?
No, I just in terms of national significance, I understand it's so what you've just confirmed is that it's registered as a heritage place under the state government legislation. But is it protected by national legislation?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Further question about the street parking. It's obviously Fauntleroy is quite a narrow street. Should people park in a manner that inhibits the ability for traffic to flow, such as emergency vehicles and others? The city has the ability to fine people for parking in such a manner. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
In terms of the policy, the heritage policy, there seems to be a difference of view between one of the presenters from the Guildford Association and the expert person, Phil Griffiths, in terms of the way that he believes this application or proposal satisfies the terms of the policy. Can you just make some comment around that?
Absolutely. So this, noticing the disagreements between those two parties, this proposal was referred to a third-party heritage advisor the city has hired, of which this third-party advisor was in support of the proposal. He was contacted during the drafting of this proposal to ensure that it was compliant.
Okay, thank you. Further questions of the presenters? Oh, sorry, of the officers? No, thank you, the officers. We'll move on now to the item. Members,
Excuse me, can I ask a quick question, please? Just in terms of the procedure. So you're going to propose that the development is approved, and then is it there's this, I'm just referring to that alternative motion for it to be refused.
Councillor Catalano, I was just going to explain.
Oh, great, thank you, because I was a bit confused as to how we can.
Thank you. The resolution of the council, which is published in the RAR, is not in a form that it doesn't actually say refusal. While I'm obliged under the standing orders to put that first, I don't think it's in a format that's very useful at all. And that's why I had requested the Regulation 13 direction to provide wording which is in the proper format. So what I'm proposing, if there is a desire to move published one, which is the council recommendation, if there is no mover and seconder for that, I'm quite happy then to go to the R13 refusal wording and allow that to be, and put that motion, allow that to be moved and seconded. So what I'm going to do is to call for a mover and a seconder for the published recommendation, which is at the front of the RAR. If there's no mover and seconder, I will then go to the R13 wording refusal. So is there a mover or seconder for that? Okay, being no mover or seconder, I'll go to the R13 recommendation, which is to refuse. Have you got that in front of you? You've got the R13. I'll put it up on the screen for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's just got the proper wording there for refusal, and the reasons are the same reasons that the council has presented at their council meeting. So I'm seeking a mover for that recommendation. Councillor Catalano, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Okay. Or there's no seconder, so for want of a seconder, the recommendation lapses. And we'll now go to the officer recommendation for approval, which is at the back of the RAR. So I'm going to seek a mover for the officer recommendation for approval. Is there a mover for that?
I'll move it.
Jean Coltos. Is there a seconder for that? Nima Fremji, thank you. Over to you, Jane.
Yes, noting the concerns of the residents, a fair weight has been given to the existing traffic problems that are in the locality in terms of on-street parking and demand generated by the obviously the train station primarily, and St Jude's, where there is some shortage of parking, and the non-use of the verge creates problems as far as traffic movement through the area. But in supporting the application, I'm mindful that the application's been through a very comprehensive review and demonstrates compliance with the planning framework from a land use perspective. In other words, the site is capable of having a childcare centre approved, and the planning assessment goes through the issues that are associated with that use. The proposal's also been through a comprehensive review of the Guildford Historic Township Blanket Heritage Policy and listing, both by the proponent's expert architect, by the City of Swan's Design Review Panel, and by the City of Swan's engaged heritage architect. All considered that the proposed childcare premises accord with the heritage values of Guildford and is considered to have achieved compliance with State Planning Policy 7.0, which is the design of the built environment. A number of issues have been raised, and one primary one is the removal of native vegetation. Only 2 trees are proposed to be removed. One is not endemic. One is the flooded gum that has been identified. The arborist report provided by the proponents note that they have been severely pruned in the past, and that has affected the ability of the trees and the appearance of the trees. The area, from a visual point of view, and I have been to the site, it's a nice locality. It has a fairly extensive tree canopy, much more than many other similar sized localities in Perth, primarily because of the large trees in the park, in Fauntleroy Park opposite, and surprisingly a lot of trees along the railway reserve. And in my opinion, the removal of the 2 trees is outweighed by the provision of a childcare centre in the Guildford locality. Aircraft noise has been raised, and a lot of people live in the locality and have chosen to live in the locality in spite of the aircraft noise. And obviously because of the nature of Guildford and the lifestyle and facilities offered. If they didn't like it, they would have chosen not to come there and not to live there, or would have moved out. Similarly, people utilising the childcare centre will have the choice as to whether they want to send their children there and have their children attend the centre or not. The Responsible Authority report does have a statement in it from Perth Airport that they don't favour the use of the site for childcare. However, they did say that if they're going to, if it's to be approved, it should have certain measures to modify the operations restrictions, also have some construction requirements which have been incorporated into the development, and now the proposal deems to comply with the noise levels predicted. Other issues were design of the form of the development, and as I mentioned, it's been through an extensive design review process and has been modified several times during that process. The building may not be heritage in inverted commas, but there are many instances where authorities, architects differ in the views of what heritage buildings have to provide, and the proponents mentioned that they were encouraged to use some contemporary elements in the design. An example of that is the old Perth State Library and the museum, where in between the 2 beautiful old buildings is a glass box, and that was, if I recall, initiated as a result of the fact that we don't want to slavishly respond to heritage designs. I think the other thing that swayed me is the demand for childcare centres. It's throughout my experience on this panel and in planning in the past, it's a huge area of demand, and to see a suburb denied a childcare centre, I think that's it's a use that's required by young families. So the parking problems, well, I think that it's been demonstrated that the parking problems are not going to be caused by this, or haven't been caused by this. And if the proponents have complied with, albeit 1 bay less, with the requirements of the statutory authorities, then that's all they should be required to provide. And taking into account the very conservative nature of traffic generation for childcare centres, I think that this centre has sufficiently provided what's required. In summary, I am supporting the proposal for those reasons.
Thank you. Nima, as seconder.
Yes, thank you, presiding member. I concur with all the comments made by the deputy presiding member, and as such won't repeat them. What I would like to say is, given the two things that has been argued through the report, which is preserving all the trees on the site and trying to keep in with the setback requirements, etc., I think that the applicant and the city officers have done a very good job in trying to find a development that could, I know it's not meeting with the setback, but it still maintains the trees in the area, which we all have talked about. The other thing is the parking. As it's been said, the parking is already a problem there. This development is not adding to it because they're providing parking on site. But what is good to hear that the Guildford, the council is looking at a overall Guildford parking strategy, and hopefully within that strategy maybe address this particular issue. The architect's report was very well written, and it's commended the development, and the reviews that has been done subsequent to the presentation of the first design has been substantial, and there has been no concerns expressed by the Heritage Council. So all in all, putting all the arguments forward by the deputy presiding member and what I've said, I hereby support the officer recommendation. And just on one note, administrative note, presiding member, advisory note 3 should refer to condition 12, not 11. Just an administrative matter.
Yes, the administrative matter.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm seeking is there a speaker against the motion? Yes, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. Well, first I want to start off with the Guildford Heritage Area Planning Policy and the fact that that Guildford is registered under the WA legislation as a heritage place. I mean, that just shows you, the enormous support for heritage in Guildford. And I mean, I think, we can take these individual cases and, keep allowing the overall heritage of Guildford. And specifically in this case, we're talking about aspects like the retention of trees, which is actually in the policy, and particularly as these trees are actually, they're definitely 100-year-old trees. And also that there are hardly any of these Eucalyptus rudis left in the actual Guildford town centre away from the rivers. And that the setbacks don't comply to the policy and the crossover. So, there's quite a number of issues with this that makes it, deviate from the policy, which has been pointed out. Now, the thing is, we can overlook them this time. The thing is, I keep overlooking them, and then you don't have anything that justifies policy or the further retention of heritage. And look, we have rules, we have regulations, we have them because people, potential developers like this developer know from the outset, before they even purchase the property, that there are constraints. There are heritage constraints on this site. And there was no, they were aware of that and they knew that. And so now we've got to set about now chipping away at all of those constraints to get this development application in. Now the problem is if you don't have a policy, what you have is what you've got in Midland, which is basically a heritage place that has been completely and utterly denuded of its heritage. Now, if we Western Australians do want heritage, as is evidenced by the fact there is the Guildford Guildford has been registered as a place. So let's stick with enforcing that and making sure that that's the case and not chipping away at it and looking at it in a holistic way. And that's probably something that I think the expert hasn't done. So I just wanted to talk about the traffic. Look, definitely, I was there yesterday and there are going to be major issues with it. Definitely going to be major issues with any egress out of Fauntleroy going west, because it has to cut across 2 lanes of Great Eastern Highway traffic. There's a big corner where Great Eastern Highway is a corner, as you probably do know. You've seen it from the map. So, I mean, it's a very blind area. You cannot see all the traffic. Then if the traffic is coming from an easterly direction and wants to go into Fauntleroy, it's got to therefore bank up right there, which is just past that corner. And it's also now got to get on to Fauntleroy, across one of the Great Eastern Highway, the other lane of the Great Eastern Highway. And then you've got the same thing on the other side at Swan Street. You've got, it's nigh on impossible to go west when you're egressing Swan Street, and it's going to be the same backing up east, and it's going to be the same backing up of traffic that has to now wait to be able to cross over that lane of Great Eastern Highway to get into Swan Street. So basically, there's going to be a hell of a lot of banking up of traffic waiting to cross over Great Eastern Highway traffic on both Swan Street and Great Eastern Highway itself to get into Swan Street. And then the same goes for Fauntleroy. There's going to be a hell of a lot of banking up of traffic to get out of Fauntleroy onto Great Eastern Highway, particularly going west. And the same will be traffic getting onto Fauntleroy. So then there is the issue of, people are in a hurry. They want to drop their kids off. They want to drop their kids off and perhaps go to the train station and catch the train. How wouldn't you? That seems very likely. So there's going to be a lot of desperate drivers. It's actually not. It is in fact a constraint on the site, and that would have been known by the developer as well when they set out to put this development to council. And 2017 traffic data, it is an awful long time ago. Things really have changed since then in that area, and we need, particularly with the main road, it going onto a main road, a road that is actually governed by main roads. There needs to have been more done to justify or to even work out how the traffic is going to egress and enter into Fauntleroy and Swan Street. It's not good enough just saying, oh, it'll be fixed up later on by the City of Swan. It actually isn't even in the jurisdiction of the City of Swan to fix up that intersection because it is actually a main road. It's main roads. So this site has got far too many constraints. It had it from the outset. It was known to the developer, and it should not be allowed to, or should not be approved, because it's probably not a good use for the site, given those constraints. And I acknowledge that we need childcare in the locality, but there are actually a lot of sites in Guildford that could be used for childcare that doesn't involve Fauntleroy and Swan Street, which are two little tiny streets, and no other streets lead to it. There's no other way of getting in and out. So it's desperately, the constraints are just desperate and beyond approval, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. When this came to council, I must say it was line ball for me, and the reason for that was my opinion was that the traffic would be an issue. However, the discussions we've heard today have changed my mind in that respect, particularly the expert advice about the fact that the requirements are based on 15 to 20%, 25% less than the actual amount required. I didn't realise that or know that. Now that I do, it's something that's worthy of future consideration for these sorts of problems. So given that, I believe that there's going to be a lot less traffic issues in regard to the proposal. The other issue, of course, around traffic is that the city certainly does need to get on with its management issues in Guildford, and certainly we could impose, if the circumstances arose where traffic was being traffic flow was being restricted, we could perhaps say, okay, well, how do we manage that? And I think the other thing too that I did like about this is that we're going to see more trees planted, which is something that we have been pursuing in the City of Swan to improve our canopy. The other thing is that there was in debate just now mentioned that Midland's been denuded of its heritage. Well, I disagree entirely. We have significant amounts of really good quality properties in Midland, and they're being protected. The other issue was Fauntleroy traffic heading south out of the site and turning west. One of the advantages that we do have, fortunately, is that there's a set of traffic lights just up the road on James Street, which of course will give a break in traffic flow heading east, which will allow traffic to exit to the west quite safely. So that concern has already been alleviated for me as well. So overall, whilst I accept that it is not a building that's 150 years old that's being built, it's a new one. It's going to have an appearance that's going to be effective in the area. I've always been pro looking after heritage, and I think the applicant is fulfilling that in terms of the building outlook, but also the applicant is fulfilling a need for childcare. So I have changed my opinion on this and will support the application. And I guess that's one of the good things about debate. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I too support the proposal. Look, I think it's easy to pick holes in the traffic issue and the heritage issue, but I'm guided by the expert opinion of, in terms of heritage, Mr. Phil Griffiths, who's a very well-known heritage architect, and his opinion was quite clear that he did not believe that this would detrimentally impact on the locality in terms of its heritage. From a traffic point of view, quite clearly the expert advice is that the traffic, the Fauntleroy Street is capable of taking that traffic. There's sufficient parking on site, so it will not or should not add to the street parking. What happens at the station is really not an issue for this particular application. So I think if the traffic is an issue because of the station, then that's obviously something the city in association with PTA or whoever needs to deal with that quite separately to this issue. I think Councillor Henderson's comments about traffic exiting onto James Street is valuable information there about the traffic lights down the road that would create gaps in the traffic for traffic to move out of Fauntleroy either east or west. This is a good design and a much needed use in the locality, and I won't repeat other information that's already been stated, so I'll support this proposal with the conditions as proposed. Back to the mover to wind up debate.
Yes, I think the discussion amongst the panel indicates the support, and I don't think I'll need to add any further.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? That's carried 4-1. Thank you. There are no Form 2 applications, no SAT reconsiderations, and other business there shows that matters currently before us, and I declare the meeting closed at 11:34 a.m. Thank you everyone for your attendance.
Thank you, Chairman.